Okay, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Vlad Vailescu. I've been with Adobe for almost 7 years, working as a software engineer on the site side, working on HTML and the core components and anything that enables people to develop faster with AEM. And together with me is Ivory, who's a cloud software engineer. And we're going to talk to you about something our teams have built, a way to deploy front-end code easily with AEM as a cloud service, something that's quick and simple to do. So we're going to be talking about the way things work currently, what changes with the new front-end code pipeline. I'm going to show you a small demo, and then Ivory will take you through some of the technical details and tell you a bit about how everything was implemented in the back. And then we'll have some time to answer your questions. So right now, if you want to use AEM as a cloud service, you have to set up your program, your environment. You have to create a project or get one created from the archetype. And then if you want to do any kind of development, you need to install the local SDK, create your templates, your content policies, customize how your website looks, and then everything needs to be integrated back into the client libs and then deployed to AEM as a cloud service, which means pushing to Cloud Manager Git and waiting for some time, usually over 45 minutes, to get your change live. And then whenever you need to do one small change, for example, you need to change a bit the look and feel, then you have to go through all this again and again and again. And if you are a customer and you want to create a website, right, you need to set up AEM as a cloud service, but then you need to hire this backend developer that knows all the wild tools that AEM uses, like Maven and Java and OSGI and HTML. And they will be the ones that are going to be doing your code deployment for you. And once you have some sort of website running, if you have your front-end developer that knows how to make your site all jazzy and nice, then yeah, they will be working with stuff like HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And they will need to send all their changes back to the backend developer and integrate everything into client libs. And then he will do the deployment again, and hopefully you'll have your website updated. So our idea was, what if you could just create and edit your website and do that as you start using AEM as a cloud service. You don't need to do any kind of deployment. You just start and create a website. And then front-end developer can see what you've been working on, what kind of content you've typed in, and she can make some local changes, see them live, and then when she's happy with the results, she can push the update directly to AEM as a cloud service. Your website is updated, and everything looks good. And that led us to the new front-end code pipeline, which is a modern solution. It's based on the Jamstack model, and it deploys and serves static files from a CDN. In order to get this working and be able to create a website without having to deploy a project, you would need to seed your website from a site template. Then the build pipeline is going to be fast and very loosely coupled to AEM. It will use Cloud Manager, but for the beta and for our internal testing, we've been using GitHub Actions. And basically, it can be everything because it's just a front-end build. And deployment is just about running the build pipeline and collecting all the output in a tar.gz file and uploading it somewhere, which is then processed, and everything that's in there is being made available on CDN over a static domain as immutable files. And AEM is also updated to reference your files from the new location. So if you look at the general model, AEM is serving HTML through the CDN, once you have your front-end module sources, you can just use those to have a live preview of how things would change if you change something in the front-end module. But you don't need to have AEM running. You don't need an SDK. You can just do a live preview on top of your existing live instance. And when you're happy, you just push your changes into a Git repository, and then the pipeline will build your front-end module. It will collect all the outputs, put them somewhere. From there, it's going to be picked up by the front-end code deployment and made available somewhere in a blob store. AEM will also be notified about that so that it can start referencing them, and then the files will be made available through CDN under those static URLs, and you'll have your JavaScript, your CSS, fonts, and whatever static images you want to include in your front-end module. You will have them all served in CDN. And this would take a few minutes just. So yeah, let me just show you a demo. In order to not have something happening like it did for Facebook today, I recorded it. But I'll walk you through it. So when you have your AEM as a cloud service instance, you can just go and create a site based on a template, and you can import a template. We have one available, the standard template. It's on GitHub. And then you type in a name for your website. You click on create, and your website is created just like that. Then you can navigate your website. It's a full-fledged multi-language website with some pages. You can edit your content, and it has some basic styling, nothing too fancy, but still offers some options. It uses core components and the style system, and you can already start putting in and scaffolding some content, even if you don't have any kind of programming knowledge, right? And it looks kind of decent, like a website. And when you want to customize it, you can just download the theme sources, which is basically just a zip file containing a front-end module. It's just a Node.js project. And yeah, you can just npm install and then npm run build, and it will generate all the files needed to make your website look nice. Yeah, it will generate CSS, JavaScript, and whatever other resources you have defined or the template creator has defined. And if we load this into an IDE, we can see that it's just JavaScript and CSS, well, Sass in this case. So you can also have a live preview. You can just run npm run live, and it will build your website, your front-end module, and it will open a proxy to your live website. And basically, it will change whatever JavaScript, CSS, or resources you might have in your original website with those that are coming from your local build. So if you put in the page that you want to see through the proxy, you can just navigate there. It will show you the website. And yeah, if you want to make any kind of change, for example, you can change the background to something more jazzy, like pink or something. Yeah, once you've saved, it will detect that something has changed. It will rebuild the files. It will trigger a browser sync, and you can already see in your proxy that yeah, the color has changed, and I think it looks great. So yeah, we should just commit this and add it to Git and see how we can get it live. And getting it live is just a few steps. Just add it to Git, you commit it, you push it, and once it's in there, you can go and trigger your front-end build pipeline. For now, I can't yet show you the Cloud Manager pipeline because that's not yet publicly available. But for the beta, like I said, we use GitHub Actions, which are basically running the front-end build. And it's just about running npm audit, npm install. Basically, it's npm CI because that's not touching the package log JSON file, and it's leading to more repeatable builds. But then at the end, it will run npm run build, and when that's finished, it will collect everything that's in the dist folder. It will create a tarball file out of it, upload it somewhere, and from there it's gonna get picked up, unzipped, and yeah, basically it will be made available to AEM. So AEM, instead of referencing the default CSS and JavaScript theme, will now reference our new CSS, the one that has the pink and nice background. And yeah, that's it for the demo. I'm passing over to Ivory, so he will tell you about the technical implementation and give you more details about how that works.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you a lot for the wonderful demo. It's great to see the front-end code pipeline in action. So far, we have covered what the front-end code pipeline is and delivers to the customer. So now we can talk a bit about the technical details of how we enable this feature. And we can start from the user and customer here. Yeah, they will make a request to the AEM over a custom domain or author's publish specific one. It goes through the CDN network and goes to the AEM instance, which will serve the dynamic content in HTML files. As Vlad mentions, we are following Jamstack model here, and we are serving static files from a separate domain. In this case, it's a static prefix with the static here. We call it a static domain. So the browser will automatically go and try to fetch those files. So again, it will go through the CDN network here and reach the Azure Blob storage, where we actually host those files. And we call it workspace here. So it hosts CSS and JavaScript files that we can reach. So now the task is when a front-end developer makes a code change, we want to get it to the workspace. And the way we can do it is developer will execute a deployment pipeline, much as we just did with the GitHub Actions, that will run npm build and generate a tar file and upload it to yet another Azure Blob storage that we call repository. So now the task is to get the tar files from the repository to workspace and make them available so we can reference them individually. And to do this, we introduced a front-end code deployer component that talks with repository and workspace blob storages and identifies packages that we have in repository and we want to get to the workspace. So it synchronizes the data between the two and uploads files to workspace. So once FCDC does that and uploads these files to workspace, they become available over static domain. And the last step here is to notify AEM about the new availability so it can start referencing them, these files. We can go to the next slide and we can talk a bit more what the FCDC does internally. So FCDC is running a reconciliation loop continuously. And the first thing it does, it reaches to the Kubernetes API server and fetches configurations and secrets. And these resources encapsulate all the information FCDC needs to identify which front-end code pipelines to enable, which AEM instance to talk to, and so forth. So it grabs all this data. And then the next step is to identify what packages we need to get from repository to workspace. And the way to do it is first to go to workspace and find all the packages that we have installed there. So that's the first step here. We are fetching state file from workspace, which has all the metadata information that we need. Then we do the similar operation on the repository side, where we fetch the packages that we have installed there. Remember, we have tar files there, the source package files. So then we have all this information in memory, and FCDC has internal logic that decides which packages we need to upload to workspace. And then for each of these packages, we process them concurrently. And then for each of these packages, we go ahead and we download them from repository, we unpack them locally, and we upload them to the workspace. So yeah, those are the steps here. Once we upload those individual files to workspace, they are already available over the network. We update some state file in the workspace. Those are some metadata information that we maintain, so it's easy for the component to identify what we have installed there. And then the final step again is to notify AM about these changes, and we do this through post endpoint. So we run a post endpoint against AM with all the processed packages that we did just now. And then at that point, the job of FCDC is done, and it will run this same reconciliation loop again. And if there is any changes that needs to be done, it will perform those. Yeah, so it repeats these steps. The system here, as we can see, it's quite decoupled. We have two separate Azure Blob storages, one for hosting the source files, the TARD versions, and one for hosting workspace, the target files. And then the component that handles the data synchronization between them is also separated. It's an FCDC component. So we achieve this decoupled system here that we don't, that is separate from AM. And that's what that was the target that we wanted to achieve. If we go on the next slide here. Yeah, so when designing FCDC, we had some considerations that we wanted to implement within the system. And then the first one was, first of all, we wanted the single FCDC instance to handle multiple deployment pipelines. And FCDC achieves this by using dynamic configurations. So the first step in the reconciliation loop is to fetch resources from the Kubernetes server. So we can dynamically add a new pipeline that we want to enable or remove existing one, and that will happen almost instantaneously. The next thing was we wanted to have advanced filtering mechanism to target the packages that we actually want to expose to the internet and upload to the workspace. By default, FCDC will identify the latest versions of the packages from the repository or source Azure Blob storage and upload them to workspace. However, if your source packages are following semantic versioning, you can have semantic version queries to target packages. For example, you can say you want to upload 0.x version of certain package or some range query for targeting packages. Another consideration was that we want our deployment, we want to version our deployments, and we want them to be immutable. So when we run deployment pipeline, we want to make sure that the package, the tar files that we generate and that we upload to the Azure Blob storages are not overwritten, and they get to the workspace eventually. So to do this, we adopt a unique version naming strategy here. We combine package name, version, package version. We combine it with the timestamp that it was generated and the commit ID, and that gives us a unique name. Now, since we upload the same package to the workspace, we would be exposing the same name in the workspace, and we want to avoid this because it has some sensitive information such as timestamp and the versions of the packages that you work with. So to obfuscate that information, we take a hash of that name, SHA-256 hash, and use that instead. So the URI here that you can see, CSS/theme CSS is the path to your file within your package, and then the prefix is the hash of the package name, the one that you actually use. And that's what you will see if you inspect the HTML content that the AM serves you. And then finally, we also wanted to make sure that performance and memory consumption were in line. one of the goals of the front-end code pipeline is to accelerate the deployment of front-end code changes to the production. FCDC is performant from that aspect. It can process 1,000 unique packages within 5 minutes. So what that means is if you suddenly upload 1,000 unique packages in your repository and you want them available right away, it will take less than 5 minutes for this component to get all these changes into the workspace and make them available over the static domain. And then finally, so far we have been speaking about repository and workspace to Azure Blob Storages. We are only uploading files to it, right? Deployment pipeline is pushing tar files constantly to the repository, and FCDC component is constantly moving files to the workspace. At some point, we want to clean these containers up, from outdated packages that are not referenced anymore. And we have separate systems in place that will do a periodic cleanup of these containers, so the memory consumption of those Azure Blob Storages are tracked. And that is it for the design considerations for CDC and for the system that enables the front-end code pipeline. As overall, the target of the pipeline is to accelerate the deployment of the code to the production, and we enable this through this system. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. Thank you everyone for attending and for your attention. And if there's any questions, we will be happy to answer them.
There were a couple of questions. Let's go a bit through them. I saw that Hyman has already answered to a few of them. People are asking if these could be used for on-prem setup. But you'd have to create the same kind of architecture yourself. At the moment, there are no clear plans to add support for that, for on-prem implementation. But we've seen partners and customers building similar stuff. Now you have the option to have this running for you automatically on AM as a cloud service. Another question from Lamar. This delivery model covers support for static SPAs. Will the front-end pipeline support a workflow where we are seeking to achieve server-side rendering with something like Next.js? At the moment, this covers static assets, front-end assets. I can't really comment right now on the future, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Again, Milan asks if there are documentation to implement this process in self-hosted AM. You would have to figure out how you want to do that based on the stack that you have and the deployment and the infrastructure that you have there. What we've built here actually plays nice with the infrastructure that Adobe has in the cloud. Another question from Mir. Does this mean we are getting away from client libs? We could for some of the websites. You could still run some of the front-end stuff from client libs if you have some base client libs that you want to use. Like, for example, the standard site template uses the core components, and those core components already come with the base client lib package that offers some basic styling, and then whatever is done in the site template, the theme that you can customize, the front-end theme can add on top of that. Similarly, if you want to create your own site template at some point, or use one that's created by an Adobe partner, you could still have some client libs that get deployed classically, but then you would have just the framework part, some components, some client libs, and everything for each website. You will have just a small package that is customizable, that changes the overall look and feel. more like a theme. Vinicius is wondering if this is an official Adobe development or a third-party tool. And he would like to test it today. Is it possible, and what are the requirements? Well, it's an Adobe development. It's built on top of AM as a cloud service, so you would need to have an AM as a cloud service program, and you would need to join the beta program. It's still not available at large right now, and you'll need to reach out to your account manager and see how you can join the beta program, or reach out to us directly. Join the beta program and you can try it out. Another question from Lamar: if you're using a single deployment model with AMS on AWS or Azure, Cloud Manager will be available, and by extension, the front-end code pipeline will be available. Is this correct? Right now, it's only enabled for AM as a cloud service, and I can't really comment on plans to extend it further to AMS. Another question from Matthias: how is this integrated in the backend AM code deployment pipeline? QA teams will typically want to test in stage, and the combined product, the backend plus the front end, which is then rolled out. Well, right now, when you do a front end deployment, it's made available on an environment on both author and publish, and you can decide if you want to later on, if you only want to make it available on author, for example, or if you only want to make it available on stage. It's still going to be a Cloud Manager pipeline. It will still run in 2 steps for stage and prod environments. It will first deploy to stage, and you can make it wait for manual approval, or you can have your custom tests, front-end tests, and then allow it to pass on to production. And for production, for example, if you are still unsure that you want to take these changes that quickly to the publish node, you can just configure it to only update your authors. You can have another check there, and then when you think it's okay, you can publish the change and have it live. Another question from Dale: is this pipeline assuming hosting via AEM and AEM CDN for the public-facing pages you'd be deploying? It could work with different pages as well, but it works better if you are using AEM, of course, because it's tightly integrated. So you get the updates automatically when a deployment goes through. It also works with bring your own CDN in case you want to use your own CDN with AM as a cloud service. So you can configure the deployment to use your own domain name or custom prefix there, and you can reference the files and load them from your own CDN if you want. And that CDN will just defer to Fastly, but the end node will be served from your own CDN. And in the question and answer tab, I see from Yuval, are there any links to the configuration? We don't have the feature available yet for everyone, so there are no public links yet for documentation, but when it will be generally available, you will have documentation that describes how it works. Until then, the beta program will give you more information. Cool. I guess that's it. We also have a dedicated forum as well. If you feel the need to gather more information, send us a message there. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.